I'm reading from the book All the Women of the Bible. And today I'm reading the story of Deborah. Today I'm reading the story of Elizabeth and the longed for child. So let's get into it. I tell you, Mary, grunted Elizabeth as she shifted position on the bench and raised her swollen feet onto the stool again. I am ready for this baby to be born. Mary jumped as though she'd been poked with a sharp stick. Her eyes widened. Now, Aunt? Shall I run for the midwife? Shall I send Uncle Zachariah? What should I do? For a start, returned her aunt, laughing. Sit down again. Nothing's happening, I promise you. I have 9 weeks to go, more or less. What I meant was, I'm really, really tired of carrying this child. My back aches all the time. My feet and legs swell. I'm hot. I can't get comfortable anyplace. And I simply waddle when I try to walk. Enough. I'm too old for this. Now you, when your time comes, it'll be much easier. You're only, 15, said Mary, flushing. Well, I'm 60, declared Elizabeth. And trust me, girl, this is not what 60-year-old women were meant to be doing, angel or no. Yes, she added, seeing Mary's horrified expression. I know the Lord God knows his business, but why? If he meant to have blessed us with a child, he couldn't have seen fit to do it 40 years ago. I do not see. And so I've told him, come now, help me up. I've got to walk around or I'll cramp again. Of course, said Mary, helping her aunt to her feet. Then curiously and somewhat fearfully, she said, You really said all that to the angel? What angel? Snorted Elizabeth. You got an angel, of course. Had to. The Lord God was going to father your child himself. But no angel ever spoke to me, I promise you. Not that I don't understand. Since Zachariah had the duty of fathering the child, I guess it only fitting for him to get the news first. But still, the angel could have come to both of us, and so I said to the Lord God. I didn't see him, of course. He didn't answer me either, but I told him just the same. I do think, that I could have been consulted, especially since I'm going to have to do the suffering. But didn't Uncle Zachariah tell you what the angel said when he came home? Asked Mary, puzzled. Elizabeth looked at her oddly. Of course not, child. He couldn't remember. The angel struck him dumb when he didn't believe what the angel said. He couldn't speak a word. Well then, how? Began Mary, but Elizabeth interrupted. Simple, she said with a laugh. He grabbed me and things went from there. That's what I mean. I certainly didn't mind, but it would have been nice to know. And what would one more angel have cost the Lord God? Mary decided not to touch that one. She cleared her throat instead. Grabbed? She asked faintly. Elizabeth's picture did not match her ideas of old age and a staid religious couple doing God's will. Yes, her aunt replied. Nicely, of course. Zachariah is always a gentleman. And after all, he couldn't tell me what was going on, could he? And given the Lord God's command and the promise of a baby at last, he really didn't want to wait to write the story out. So, said Mary tentatively, you didn't know when you were... Not a thing, Elizabeth laughed. I all but fell over when your uncle finally wrote out for me the whole story of what had happened to him in the temple. Imagine, a baby boy. I was so thrilled, and so was Zachariah. I'm not so sure now, but I've seen enough other women having babies born to know that's normal. It'll be all right once he's born. Aunt, you know how to read? Like the scribes? Mary was wide-eyed. Certainly, Elizabeth answered, thumping down onto the cushioned bench again, puffing a bit. That's one of the things Zachariah taught me when it was clear that we weren't going to have children for a while. Good for you, he said. Keep your mind occupied. You can help me too, and you never can tell when it'll come in handy. So he taught me to read and write. Hebrew first for the scriptures, and then Aramaic. He taught me numbers too, so I could keep the accounts. Arabic and Roman, would you believe? Zachariah is thorough. I'll say that for him. So you didn't know what was going to happen until you read Uncle Zachariah's account, she asked. Not a thing, her aunt assured her. You can imagine how excited I was when I read that we were finally going to have a child and that his job would be to get Israel ready for the Messiah. Here, she said, and reached for the loose scroll on the shelf. Read it for yourself. Mary blushed. I can't read, Aunt. Heavens! Whatever was Joachim thinking of not to teach you? Elizabeth was indignant. Men. They never think. Well, sit down here. We'll start you learning now. It'll take your mind off of your morning sickness, for one thing, she added. And Mary flushed scarlet as Elizabeth hugged her. And you never can tell. It might come in handy one day. I'm about to run out, so I'm going to go to part 2. So I hope you'll join me for part 2 as we read from Elizabeth and the longed-for child.